He handed me the folder like he was doing me a favor. "Your college fund," he said, sliding it across the table. "It's gone. I used it to pay off your sister's mortgage. You'll thank me later." I looked up from the folder, from the neat rows of bank statements that confirmed he wasn't joking. His face carried that smug calm of a man convinced he'd made the responsible choice. I smiled. Small, controlled. "If you think so?" He chuckled, satisfied. He thought the conversation was over. He didn't notice my silence wasn't submission. It was calculation. 40 minutes later, when his phone rang, his face turned pale. "You have to understand something about my father. He was a man who prided himself on control. He liked to make decisions for everyone else, and he called it guidance. For as long as I can remember, he treated my choices like suggestions and my dreams like detours. He loved my sister Nora differently. She was fragile, dependent, always one bad decision away from disaster, and he thrived on rescuing her. I was the one who never asked to be saved, and that made me less interesting to him. When Mom died, that imbalance grew. He turned his help into a leash. Every dollar he gave came with invisible strings. So I learned early, never owe him. That's why the college fund mattered. It wasn't just money, it was freedom. I'd earned part-time jobs, scholarships, savings I'd scraped together for years. He'd promised to safeguard it until I graduated. I believed him. Then came the folder. The first thing I noticed wasn't the missing balance. It was the tone he used when he said it, like it was a moral triumph, like betraying me was an act of love. That was when I realized something. My father didn't understand consequences. He'd spent his life rewriting them. So I decided to teach him. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just nodded, thanked him for the lesson, and excused myself. While he poured himself another cup of coffee, I opened my laptop in the next room. The first thing I did was access the joint account he'd used to move the funds. His arrogance worked in my favor. He'd never changed the password. Still my birthday, still predictable. I downloaded every statement, every transfer, every wire. I traced the trail straight into Nora's mortgage. And further. Turns out she wasn't the only one he'd helped. Over the past 5 years, he'd quietly rerouted money from trust accounts meant for Mom and mine's estate into side projects he managed under his company's name. Mostly small loans he never repaid. It was embezzlement. Personal, yes, but still embezzlement. And he'd done it under his firm's corporate umbrella. I didn't need revenge. I needed precision. I started by contacting the firm's auditor, an old acquaintance from college, someone who owed me a favor. I asked her to verify a few documents for an upcoming family dispute. She didn't need to know more. 3 days later, she called back. Her tone was cautious. "You know these transfers? They look like internal misuse of funds. Do you want me to flag them?" "Yes," I said. "Flag everything." The next morning, his company's compliance department opened an internal investigation, quietly, discreetly. They sent him an email requesting clarification on several discrepancies. He ignored it. Of course he did. He thought he was untouchable. But the investigation didn't stop there. When auditors pull a thread, they don't stop at the first knot. Within a week, his partners were aware. Within 2, the board demanded explanations. And by the time they found the forged authorization letters, the ones he'd signed in my name, the silence around him had become unbearable. That brings us back to the kitchen table. He thought we were having a normal Saturday morning conversation. He thought I was still the obedient daughter who'd take the blow quietly. But I'd already done everything. The calls were made, the files sent. 40 minutes after he told me he'd used my college fund to help my sister, his phone rang. He picked up, expecting a routine call. Then his smile faded. "Yes, this is he?" "What?" "No, that's impossible." His voice trembled. The hand holding the phone began to shake. I watched, expressionless, as he tried to control his breathing. He hung up slowly. His skin looked gray. "What happened?" I asked, my tone perfectly neutral. He swallowed. It's a misunderstanding. Someone reported me to the board. They're investigating my accounts." "Oh," I nodded, feigning mild surprise. "That must be stressful." His eyes searched mine. Maybe he saw it then, the quiet satisfaction behind my calm. Maybe not. But he knew something was off. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. The silence between us stretched. I stood, collected the folder, and said softly, "I told you I'd thank you later." He lost his position 2 weeks later. The firm froze his accounts pending review. Nora's mortgage was flagged for improper transfer of funds. She had to sell the house. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Justice is quieter than revenge, but it cuts deeper. I used the remaining trust money, once everything was recovered, to enroll in law school. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sometimes, when I see his number flash on my phone, I let it ring. Because some lessons are only learned in silence. And 40 minutes was all it took for M to finally understand what it feels like to lose control.